Welcome to How to Invest Passively in Real Estate. We appreciate all of you guys for coming out, making it here. You're investing in yourselves. So the biggest thing is always thank yourself for coming out here, for being here, because that's really what it's about. A lot of times we have different themes that we use. The theme to this week is actually, or this event is gonna be from Warren Buffett. So when others are greedy, be fearful. And when others are fearful, that's when you be greedy. So that's gonna be the theme of the event. But the biggest thing that we're gonna be talking about today is we're gonna be talking about pre-construction. We're gonna be showing you how it is a passive investment. We're not gonna be talking too much about resale. We're not saying pre-construction is better than resale or resale is better than pre-construction. In real estate, there's just a lot of different ways to make money. There's a lot of different options that you can have. So this is just another one of those options. So I'm Bawanka, and this is Safraz with the Compass team. We also have Vanessa, who's one of our team members as well. We have Macario in the back if you need anything from him. And Macario's our assistant. Vanessa's our newest agent for the bathroom. I don't know if you guys know where the bathroom is yet, but if you need to go, it's just right around the corner. Macario can show you where it is. The men, there's no password on it this time. The females, there is a password. It's on the door, so you just gotta put your hand on it. Even when I first tried it, I didn't know how to do it, but put your hand on it, it will light up and put in whatever number it says on it. But yeah, so the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about is really pre-construction. But I'm going to pass it over to Safraz, and he'll fill you guys in on a little bit as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Blanca. Appreciate you guys for coming out. Always a great turnout. So many of you guys know we joined Royal LePage about 18 months ago, and one of the primary reasons we joined was because they have the best pre-construction team in all of Canada. We have first access, we have connections with the builder, so that was one of the reasons that we've joined. And in terms of the Compass team, Blanca's and I vision was always, we're gonna grow slow, or we're gonna just have some killers with us. It's always, we're just gonna have the greatest people with us. That way we can grow organically and yet still have great results. So he spoke about it, but we have Macario. He's been with us for quite some time now, but he's killing it. You guys have seen it. And then we have Vanessa. You may have seen her at the last events, but now she's actually an agent, licensed agent, and again, she's crushing it. We're really proud of you guys, and we look forward to growing with everybody. In terms of the Compass team, over the last, actually this year, we've done just a bit over $12 million in volume and over 20 deals, and 20 families helped, just us three with Macario. So we're really proud of it, and we look forward to helping many more of you guys. And that's one of the reasons why, again, we joined Royal LePage, and we're going to talk about that in a bit as well.
Mm-hmm. So our vision with these events, and the biggest thing that we always want to do is kind of educate. So you guys all get a book. You're going to be able to take it home. If you've already come to an event, you already have a book. Take it home, give it to a friend, because there's really good information in here. It's going to teach you how to buy, how to sell, how to invest in real estate. And you're probably wondering, why would you give us all the keys, all the knowledge? At the end of the day, you want to know as much as you can to be able to make the best decision. So what we're going to do today, we're going to start out with kind of what's going on in the market. This is the most common question that we always are getting. From there, we're going to talk about interest rates. I'm sure everybody knows interest rates are going up a lot. They're going through the roof. And from there, we're going to start talking about pre-construction, kind of the ins and outs of it. And that's really what the whole thing is going to be about. So if you do have questions, we ask that you hold the questions. If it's really important, you think you might not remember it, or we're moving on to the next slide, then feel free to ask. Just put your hand up. You can ask. It's okay. But a lot of the things that you're going to ask, we might be able to answer it as it goes on. And then at the end of it, we're gonna have a Q&A section, so you'll be able to ask whatever questions that you do want. So, first thing we're gonna start out with is average price, and we're gonna be talking about what's been going on for the last 2 years. So basically since January 2021. Now, in January 2021, rates were low. Money was cheap. So we look right here, this is January 2022, but the money was basically, they were giving away money for free. And the pandemic hit. Everybody was scared, and then we were all stuck inside. And because we're all stuck inside, we realized a lot about our homes. And when you start realizing a lot about your homes, you realize, okay, maybe there's some things that I need to change. So people started buying, also because they were giving away money for free. And when people started buying, prices started going up. And they kept on going up. And there was a lot of times where almost every house, you were seeing 10 offers on it, 15 offers on it, 20 offers on it. And like we talked about, when others are greedy, be fearful. And when others are fearful, be greedy. So the way that just human psychology works, when everything is going up and everybody else is doing it, that's when you want to do it. And when everybody's on the sidelines and not doing anything, that's when you want to be on the sidelines and not doing anything. And that's where we are right now today. So consumer confidence is very low right now today. So we got to this point, 1.33 million. This is the average price in Toronto. And from there, it started to come down. Prices started to come down a lot. Now, this is about the beginning of this year. So again, things fell off last year, but once we got to here, so January, February, prices started to come up. In April and May, the average price went up 90,000. And that's when they got to the point where they held rates, right? So as you see that coming down, that's when rates were going up, up, up. And then they got to a point where they held rates. And we have so many buyers who are just, they're ready to go, but a lot of them moved to the sideline. Now, what happened after that $90,000 increase? June, July, August, the market went down 100,000. So the market went up, the market went back down. And this is what's happening all the time. Like, it goes up, it goes down, but what you're gonna see when I bring up another graph is over time, and over time, the market goes up roughly 7% every single year. So, and every decade, property values, they double. So let's jump into the interest rate. So now, I know there's some people who might not know kind of like, what is an interest rate? What does that really mean? So the bank is almost always going to be lending you money. If you're paying cash, that's great. You don't got to worry about this. But when the bank is lending you money, there's an interest rate. And if the interest rate is higher, your monthly payment is going to be higher, unless you lock in. I mean, we have Charles, our trusted mortgage broker, who's really going to dive into what mortgages look like. And that's not really what we're diving into today. But as you can see, interest rates went up, up, up. And in 1935, this is when they started doing interest rates and whatnot. And this is the fastest that we've ever gone up ever in history. So we're in unprecedented times right now when it does come to interest rates. Right after the pandemic or during the pandemic, again, that was unprecedented times. These are times that we've never seen before. Now, we don't have a crystal ball, but what we do is we study the market. So what we think is going to be happening, and again, no crystal ball, but we think rates are going to be softening by springtime. So let's move to what's going on with immigration.
So as many of you guys know, immigration like fuels the Canadian economy, specifically on Ontario. We've seen it, but the targets is something we want to talk about. Over the last decade, we had on average about 250,000 per year. For this decade, and we're seeing it already, they're going to be averaging 475,000 immigrants per year. And when I say immigrants, it seems like a high number, but that doesn't even include people that are on study permits and refugees. So there's a lot of students that are coming to Toronto. We have great schools. So this is just an understated number of permanent residents only. So, with the increase, substantial increase of immigration, of course, it drives our economy, jobs. They need a place to stay. So as you know, rents are up tremendously over the last year. How much are rents up last year?
So rents are up 32% over the last 2 years.
32% over the last 2 years. And actually, we'll give a hard example. We have a client, 2 years ago, they rented out their apartment downtown for $1,650. We just leased it out for $2,700, the same exact apartment in a 2-year time frame. So it goes to show that there's substantial demand in homes, condos. Anywhere you're looking right now, we're seeing multiple offers across the board. And again, that's driven by immigration.
Okay.
So for the 2023 to 2025, again, we're averaging 475, but the goal is to get to 550,000 by 2025. So again, we're talking about, the last decade, it was just 250, and then we said 475. But at the end of 2025, we're expecting 550,000 immigrants to come to Toronto. Again, this is going to fuel our economy in terms of jobs, labor, and homes required. At the end of the day, they need somewhere to live. So real estate is related to immigration and population growth, and we're seeing that substantially.
So the biggest thing is, where are all of these people going to live? So there's 1 million people that came to Toronto or they became residents in 2022. And they're saying that number is actually wrong because they didn't include
the refugees and the people on student permit.
Yeah, so they didn't include those. So there's actually 2 million, and this is the fastest that it's ever rose in Canadian history. So what we do know is there's a lot more people coming to Canada, and we don't have enough houses. Just what it is. So the goal is to have 3.5 million homes across Canada by 2030. That's the goal. And we're said to be short over 1 million by that time. So there's not enough homes, and a lot of times people look at the market and they're like, well, how do we still have room to be able to grow? What we always like to talk about is Toronto is a world-class city. And if you look at other world-class cities, LA, Manhattan, Shanghai, Tokyo, all of these cities are averaging between 3,000 to 4,000 price per square foot. Okay, so if you don't know what price per square foot is, you take a home and let's say the home is $500,000, and you're not gonna find a lot for $500,000.
You call me when you find that.
But let's just say $1 million. Let's say a home is $1 million, and it's let's say it's 1,000 square feet. Numbers might not make sense still, but you're looking at 1,000 a square foot. So you basically take how much the home is worth and you divide it by how many square feet there is, and then that's how you're going to come up with the price per square foot. But we don't have enough homes, and we have so many people that are coming here. But like I said before, right now is a time where consumer confidence is down. We're in unprecedented times because rates are so high right now, and there's a lot of people who want to buy, and the reason that the rental market is so strong right now is because a lot of people who wanted to buy are like, you know what, let's move to the rental market. And the rental market is going up. Like, we're seeing crazy amount of offer dates like Safra has talked about, and it's just at one point a lot of those people are going to start moving back into buying just because it's so difficult. So again, we just want to keep on stressing it. Ontario needs 1.5 new homes. So this is Ontario. Before I was talking about Canada, of that 3.5 million, this is just Ontario. And a lot of these people are going to be coming to the GTA. So we need more homes. Now what this is a 30-year graph. So 1994 all the way to where we are. This is January 2022. We're a little bit lower than this right now. But like I said before, property values double every 10 years. And on average, the average price goes up year over year about 7%. Now, there's times where it's going to go through the roof, and there's times where it's going to go down. But over time, and one of the things we talk about, it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. So over time, things always are gonna play out. So the biggest thing that we do wanna talk about is pre-construction, and what better way to get started than with some case studies.
So like for me, I'm an investor first and then agent second. So I started my career off investing. So I'm always numbers focused on, even personally for myself outside being an agent, on how I could take my money, leverage it, and see how I can expand it. So case studies is important. And you know, obviously, like you said, year on year, it's about 7%. However, the last 3 years has been super turbulent. We had the pandemic, rates are in unprecedented times. So I want to focus on what has happened in terms of case studies for our clients over the last 3 years and show you where the proof is. So the first one, this is a Mattamy townhome. This is at Brimley and Eglinton, purchased in November 2020 for $619,000. So we are going to talk about down payment structure for pre-construction, but for this one it was $70,000. So upon signing it was $20,000 deposit and then $10,000 each following month until we got to $70,000. This one, again, we're going to emphasize it in a bit as well, but we were the second appointment, so we were able to get one of the best units there, again, at the best price. This project actually sold out in 5 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating. And it was just recently appraised for $760,000, 2-bedroom, 3-bath, and just under actually 1,100 square feet. So with the $70,000 down payment, there is a large spread, right, of $140,000. So you're at 200% of your money put in, even during these turbulent times. So this one was in Innisfil for one of our clients. So Innisfil is just south of Barrie, close to the water as well. This one was purchased, again, during the pandemic, February 2021, for $745,000, $80,000 down. Again, similar structure, it was $20,000 right away, and then every following month was about $10,000. And it was just recently appraised at $979,000. They haven't even closed on it just yet, but just appraised at $979,000, 4-bedroom, 4-bath. But again, you look at the numbers, $80,000 down and just under $250,000 in profit, even in today's market, right? So 80 to 250 in 2.5 years. This was another project that we did. We were actually the first appointment for this one. So I'm always going to emphasize first appointment, earliest appointment, but we'll talk about that in a bit. This one was purchased December 2020, right, obviously the first year of the pandemic, for just over 1.2. They put $120K down. This one was a little different where they had to put $25K in the first month, and then every other month they had to put $25 until they got to that number. I think the last payment was slightly lower, of course. It was just appraised. The client already moved in at $1.6 million, right? So if you're looking at the numbers here, it's just under about $375,000 in profit off the $120K, again, during these times. If the pandemic didn't happen, these numbers would, like, you might see a 2 at the start of this number potentially, because it's a super large house, right? 5-bedroom, 4-bath. It's a ravine lot, super large, one of the biggest homes in that complex. And again, even during these times, they've made money. So again, I always want to indicate, like, you know, of course, there's always great times and there's sometimes rough times, and we are in those rough times. And even then, we've been able to help our clients, you know, triple, sometimes double, triple. I've had a quadruple, but I didn't want to put it up here, but it definitely happens.
Okay, so when it comes to pre-construction, there's kind of 3 points that you really need to think about. So it's going to be entry, holding, and exit. Now, the majority of, I guess, like your meat and your potatoes, it's going to be on entry. That's where you're picking the right project for you, you're picking the unit, you're going through the worksheet, you're filling out all the paperwork, and you have to give your checks. That's where basically everything is happening. Holding, it's like watching paint dry. There's nothing to it. It's just, you're just waiting over time, and checks will be cashed over time, and we'll talk about that as well. But during holding, there's nothing that you're really gonna do. So we say it's kind of like a forced savings plan, because there's nothing to it. It's not like with resale, you're gonna have a mortgage and you're gonna be having to be paying every single month. There could be things coming up. With this, you just sit back. And then exit. Exit, that's where you're gonna be getting a mortgage on it. We're gonna have Charles coming up and really breaking down kind of what that looks like. But those are your three points that you need to know about when it comes to pre-construction at a higher level.
So when we talk pre-construction, when you buy a resale home, you see the home, you like it, you buy it, and you're dealing directly with the seller. When you're doing pre-construction, we're mostly focused on the builder. And we always emphasize the builder is the utmost important. Why? You want to see a builder that has done projects before, that has the experience with financing, getting permits, and seeing the project through. Because many a times, let's say during the pandemic, there were delays. What is the builder going to do? We want to make sure that they can still promise and deliver the product that we originally agreed upon with no changes. And the reputation is like of utmost importance. So like many of you guys know, I love doing pre-construction. So if there's ever an opportunity, even if I'm just going there, I'll stand in line and see if I can get an appointment. So actually, I was looking at my emails just because it's a while ago, but I saw a project, the Vic Towns, my now wife, but my girlfriend at the time, we went, it was 2017 fall. We stood in line and we also got the second appointment. And they were scheduled to complete, this was fall 2017 in 2019. It's at Victoria Park in Eglinton, literally 5 to 10 minutes away from here, and they're still not done. So now instead of it being a 2-year project, it's almost become a 6 to 7 year project. They're not done yet, right? So we've seen many, many projects, especially with newer builders. They don't have the experience. They don't know the cost to build sometimes. They're just like, oh, this is great. People are lining up for our product. They'll have cheaper products, like their price per square foot would definitely beat the market. But again, we're worried about them actually following through and delivering you the project. Because if you don't get your unit, it doesn't matter how long it took. So how many projects were canceled this year so far?
So this year, there's been 21 projects canceled so far. And they're saying or estimating that 25 projects will be canceled by the end of Q1 next year.
So the issue with when it's canceled, whatever deposit you put, 50, 70, 120, you'll get your money back. In Ontario, it is guaranteed. It goes in the lawyer's trust fund, so you'll get the money back. However, the opportunity cost, if it's a great marketplace and the property value is going up, you waited 3 years with zero return. And since we're talking about pre-construction, the average condo takes about 3 to 5 years. Again, condos take longer. Why? There's more financing involved. It's billions of dollars. There's more units on average, about 400 per building. So it takes longer. With freehold, that includes condo, townhouse, low rise, anything like a semi-detached, detached. On average, it's about 2 years. Some more, some less. However, as soon as we sign the contract, we typically know upfront what those timelines look like. And again, we always focus on reputable builders because, yeah, there might be a delay of, sometimes months, but you don't want to be in a situation where you're delayed by 4 years. And imagine now you wanted to start a family, you wanted to move in. You can't do all of those if you're waiting 3 to 4 years. That's why we always focus on builder reputation. So incentives. So you'll see this a lot, maybe on Instagram, maybe on Facebook, but incentives. Again, we talked about it a little bit. The reason why we joined Royal LePage is they have the #1 pre-construction team in all of Canada. And what does that mean? We talk about platinum access. A lot of agents will say it, but they're actually just VIP agents. But what platinum access means is you get first access to any project. Many a times we know about projects well before they're released. We have units on hand. And that way, when clients are ready and excited, ready to go, instead of waiting a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks after launch, we're able to get the first unit. And why is that important? Even when I was talking about our case studies, I always emphasize, we need to be the first 1, 2. Sometimes we're lining up at 6, 7 a.m. It doesn't matter. The reason why we do that is imagine you're standing in line for a product. If you're first, you get first dibs, right? For some products, it'll be color, size, whatnot. For homes, you get the best layout, and that's important. We also get the best prices right up front, and we also get the best incentives right up front. All of it is pre-negotiated as platinum agents, so whenever we bring something to you, it's already pre-negotiated and in writing. It's not something we're like, oh, let me go find out for you. We know all the facts, and we deliver that to you correctly. So some of the incentives as platinum agents that are super, super important these are our top 3 right here. The right to lease. So we're going to be getting a little more into the actual meaning of the word, but there's a time between when you get the keys and you can move in and when it's registered with the city and when you need the mortgage. This is called the occupancy period. So during the occupancy period, we're going to want a right to assign. Why? Because there is going to be a charge. Sometimes it's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And imagine the builder hasn't allowed you the right to lease. So if you can't lease it during that time, especially as an investor, if it's costing you $3,000, $4,000, you're out of pocket $3,000, $4,000. Imagine that takes 10 months. That's $40,000 of whatever you potentially could have made. So we always pre-negotiate that for you. The right to assign, again, we're going to get a little bit more into the weeds of it, but the right to assign is we don't recommend it. Personally, I don't recommend it. Blanca doesn't recommend it just because there are a lot of moving parts involved. So if you've never done it before, I don't recommend assigning, but situations change, right? You may have lost your job. You may not want to close on the project for whatever reason. So we, again, pre-negotiate it. What you do is whenever you sign the paperwork, right, you may have waited a couple of years. We want to say, like, in cases where you can't get a mortgage, you want to pass on that paperwork, most times with profit, onto another buyer. So if you don't have the right to assign, you have to close on it. And if you're unable to, there's going to be a ton of problems. That's why we pre-negotiate it. And development charges. We put cap there, but what development charges is whenever the builder goes to the cities and says, hey, we're going to build 7 buildings. They're like, fantastic, more money for us, the city, right? But with that, you know, the builder is going to have to require for all these units and people, sometimes schools, right? They're going to require sewage systems. Hydro needs to be there. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into building a project, especially if it's multi-building. So what happens is the city says, hey, builder, congratulations, we're about to register. For us to do all of this for you, it's going to cost an X amount. So that goes to the builder. The builder says, hey, we are going to move in, 3,000 people. Why not pass this cost on to them? That's what a development charge is. So it's basically paying for the opportunity to use all the infrastructure that they created for this new development. I've seen development charges, sometimes it's only $10,000, sometimes it's $20,000, but I've seen up to $80,000. So what we do is, again, we pre-negotiate it before we bring it to you. We cap the development charges. We always negotiate with the builder to cap it. So on average, it's about $10,000 to $15,000 for a condo project. So now, you're about to get your mortgage, you're about to close on the property. The builder says, hey, Safraz, it's $60,000. And you're like, oh, that's great, but I capped it at 10. So instead of now having to pay another $50K on top of your deposit, your land transfer tax, and your closing costs, you're only going to be liable for that $10,000, which we already knew about. And again, if it's, if we capped it at 10 and the builder says, oh, it's only 5, you only have to pay the 5. So it's a win-win either way. And again, as incentives, as platinum agents, we always make sure that you know the moment you're signing what you're getting yourself into.
So location. This is almost always the most important thing that there is when you're looking at a project or even when you're buying. So we're blessed that we live in Toronto, that we live in the GTA, because like I showed you before, the market in Toronto is just really strong. And when we talked about immigration, there's so many people that want to come here. But the biggest thing that you want to think about is rentability. So if you're an investor, you want to be able to think about kind of rentability and transit. Transit is going to be one of the most important things. So in 2017, Harvard did a study, and what they found out was anything within 500 meters of transit had a much higher rentability. So able to rent it for a lot more, and anything less than that, it's not as easy to rent out. So that's going to be subway. So subway is going to be your best. Streetcar, bus. And then another thing too, this is more for end users, not if you're thinking about condo, but still if you're thinking about condo. But that brings us to a master plan community. So what is a master plan community? A master plan community is, a lot of times it's the government, probably like 3 levels of government, are working with a builder or maybe multiple builders to kind of develop an area, and then they're going to start to build it out. Now, I know some of you guys live downtown, so City Place. City Place, that's a master plan community. Somewhere you can live, somewhere you can work, somewhere you can play. There's going to be community centers there. There's going to be libraries. There's going to be schools. City Place was really built for all those downtown buildings that are already there. But let's talk farther out, like Pickering, Seton Village, farther out, like where you're seeing before there was farms there or just open land, and now you're seeing they're turning into houses and whatnot. But you're gonna look, and there's gonna be the infrastructure is gonna be there. There's gonna be homes, all different sizes. They're putting the roads in. They're gonna have grocery, like basically everything that you need is gonna be in that area. So that's why we say like live, work, and play. The next thing is occupancy and registration. So what is occupancy and what is registration? So let's talk about if it's a condo building. So who here has been into a condo before and you know the floors are all dirty, there's construction workers everywhere, you get into the elevator, it's all boarded up, you're like, does this thing even work? Is it gonna break down? Anybody been in one of those? Probably everybody's been in that because there's so many condos going up in Toronto. So this building is still in the occupancy period. I mean, the elevators are safe, everything is safe, and then when you get into probably your friend's unit, you're gonna see it's all complete, it's all done. So the unit is complete, it's done, everything is safe, and you're able to move in. So when Safra was talking about the right to lease, during that time, some builders are not gonna allow you to lease, but the builders that we're gonna be working with will allow you to lease, and there's gonna be a fee. So what that fee is gonna be, it's gonna be the occupancy fee, it's gonna be your property tax, it's gonna be your maintenance fee. You're gonna have to pay your property tax once like it's registered, and then the maintenance fee, you're gonna have to be paying that as well. And the last one is gonna be interest that you're gonna be having to pay to the builder. But this is going to be less than what your mortgage is. So that's a time where you're actually going to be winning most as an investor, and that's why it's so important to have the right to lease in those documents when you're making them happen. So on average, it's going to take between 6 to 8 months, and then the building is going to register with the city. Once the building registers with the city, now it's like you have to get the mortgage on it, you own the place, and your fees are gonna be just what they already are. Maintenance fee, property taxes, and then just whatever your mortgage is at that time.
So understanding the HST rebate. So you guys know when you go to the grocery store, whatever you buy, you have to pay that 13%. It's actually very similar with properties for pre-construction. However, it's typically built into the purchase price. I just want to keep the numbers simple, but in $1 million, that 13% is already included. However, included for an end user. An end user is someone who's going to be moving in and living into the property. However, as an investor, the government says, hey, you're looking to make some money? Cool. On registration, which is when you need your mortgage, so you put your 20% down, you have your closing fees covered, that $24,000, you do have to pay it to the government as soon as you sign those paperwork. However, when you work with us and we help you lease your unit out, again, it may have already been leased because it's been occupied. We take the paperwork. When you work with us, we'll have that paperwork. We'll staple it to the HST rebate form. And instead of now just having to pay that $24,000 and losing that money, you'll actually get back about $23,000 and change in about 6 to 8 weeks. So that's why we always say we need to tell the builder, hey, we're going to be renting it out. All right, we have the paperwork, we submit the paperwork the day of registration that's gone to the city, and on average it takes about 6 to 8 weeks. It'll be about, again, $23,000 and change. So the mortgage process. I did close on a few pre-construction, so I'm very much expert on it, but again, during the time you don't need a mortgage. However, most builders now require paperwork to make sure that you're not just like, hey, I borrowed with XYZ, I have the financing in order. They want to make sure that you're able to close in whatever the timeline they've given you. So because of that, we've actually brought the man himself, Charles, from the Money Mint, to speak a little bit about it.
I just want to make sure this is on properly.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Evening, I should say. So the mortgage process, when it comes to pre-constructions, there's really two parts of it, very different from a freehold, right? So like Blanca and Safras were saying, you go, you pick out your unit, and essentially what happens, the builder or the developer is going to ask you Usually you have a 10-day grace period to put your initial deposit, whether it be 5K on signing. In that 10-day grace period, they're going to say, we want you to get pre-approved, usually from a specific lending institution, backed by a pre-approval letter for a project that's closing in 5 years. Obviously, that makes no sense, but that's what the builder wants, right? So essentially, you're getting pre-approved now for something you're not closing on for whatever, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Obviously, so much can change, right? So you do have to qualify for the mortgage at the day of purchase because it's backed by a pre-approval letter. Now, builders are also getting smart, right? Before, they never used to do this, but now they're actually calling the lending institution on that letter to actually prove that you were actually pre-approved, because obviously what was happening is people were just getting letters from their mom and dad, right? And just getting it signed. So-and-so qualifies for $1 million mortgage. But now they're actually calling to verify. One thing I would say, because I'm seeing this a lot right now, don't write a check you can't cash. Because when 2, 3, 4 years does come and it comes quickly, you do have to come up with that money to close. And right now what we're seeing is a lot of people can't, right? Over COVID, like Blanco was saying, when money was at like 1.5%, 2%, they bought 5 pre-constructions like it was candy during that time, and now they got 4 or 5 closings within 2 years at 8%, right? So coming up with that money to close at 20% down is obviously quite aggressive and scary because, again, 20% on a couple projects, that's a lot of capital. Nonetheless, you go through the grace period, you qualify, you get your letter, everything goes well. 2, 3, 4 years go by. Hopefully, there's no delays on your project. At that point in time, they mentioned occupancy. The builder should. Again, this is why it's really good to work with a reputable builder like a Mattamy, like a Rosewood, or something like that, because they should at least give you the letter on occupancy, which is anywhere between 90 days, 30 days prior to closing, just to let you know, hey, the project's done. This is your firm closing date. Please start arranging your financing to get your mortgage. Again, usually it should be minimum 30 days. Now, with the smaller builders that unfortunately aren't as reputable, what we're seeing a lot is they're sending that letter out maybe 10 days out, 5 days out, because they don't actually want you to close, right? Because they know if they can take it, they can sell on the open market for much more than what they sold it for. Again, during COVID, it was unprecedented times. But again, let's say that's not the occasion this time around. Once you get that letter, it's at that point in time you want to go to your mortgage broker or your bank and essentially make sure that you have your 20% down payment or 5 or 15. Every builder is different. Some of them are going to require you to put 20%. Some of them are okay closing with less than 20%. That's really depending on the builder, what you guys have arranged with Blanca and Safras on the day of signing. And then just making sure that everything's in line like a typical mortgage process. Credit's there, income's there to service the mortgage. Is it going to be rented out or is it going to be a primary home? Obviously, again, because then you'll get that HST rebate back on the day of closing. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward. It's just making sure, I would say, that you are, when you're signing those papers originally in the beginning and you're finding out your unit, you want to make sure, as if it was closing now, that you'd be okay to hold this mortgage. Just because, again, what we're seeing is a lot of people are selling, not because they want to, because they're being forced, because they simply just over leverage themselves buying a few too many pre-constructions during the times of COVID. But yeah, outside of that, again, once you get that letter, that's when you actually go through your mortgage process. So you're reaching out to your broker, you're providing all your income docs, down payment has probably already been given to the builder already, so you don't have to worry about that. And just making sure credit score is aligned, income is aligned, and I would say that's pretty much it.
Perfect.
All right?
Thank you, Charles.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Perfect.
Okay, you know Charles always holds it down. If you ever have questions about money, you can always ask him. He'll be here after. He's done events with us before. We're going to have another one that's going to be coming up soon. He's going to be talking at that one as well. But we just like to bring up the money man to kind of help you understand more about what's going on with the money.
So now we've decided on a reputable builder. We have our things in order. You're ready to move forward. What's next? We found the project, the right one. So allocations and worksheets, you'll see that a lot. So again, as platinum agents, specifically with Royal LePage signature, we actually have allocations. And what is an allocation? It's that our buyers, before we even have them sign anything, we have units assigned to us basically to sell. So we hold these units until our clients, of course it is on a first come, first serve basis, we hold these units for them. So typically they're the best units. We always recommend the smaller units, a typical 1 bedroom, 1 bath, super simple layouts. So we have these units. So that's what an allocation is. A worksheet, again, you'll see this a lot. A worksheet is just a reservation form. It's basically you putting in your serious interest to potentially invest in this property. A worksheet typically will have your top 3 choices. Again, it's because it's on a first come, first served basis. We have to give it to the people that come to us first and say, Safras Blanca, we're ready to move forward. And the allocations we have, we will assign it to them, and then we will discuss. So the reservation form, we always emphasize, even if you're not, if you're like 90% there, it's always advantageous to take care of that. Again, when the builder releases units, typically the first phase, you'll have the best prices, the best incentives, and that's when the demand is super high. And that's when actually the builder's testing the waters. They're like, okay, we're building 7 buildings. Let's figure out what the actual price per square foot should be at this project. If it sells out in a day, guess what? The next project's gonna be, I've seen it, minimum 10,000, sometimes 100,000 from the price of phase 1 to phase 2. That's why we always emphasize, even if you're interested, to get your worksheet ready. What does that look like? It's having 2 pieces of ID and at least your first deposit that's due immediately, because many times we sign contracts and we sign it at 11. The builder says, all right, Safras, you need to have that check, draft check of 10,000, 5,000 delivered to my office before 4 p.m., before we're willing to sign it. Why? Because the demand's so high. If we choose not to proceed, they're gonna just move on to somebody else. So that's why we always emphasize these 2 things.
So one of the biggest things that you need to do, because it's such a rush, is you need to lock it up. So you need to get it under contract. And now it seems counterintuitive, you know, it's always better to wait and kind of think about it, but there's a 10-day due diligence period. And the reason that 10-day due diligence period is there, and this happens on any condo in Ontario, and it's because there were times where just they were selling so fast and people didn't know what they were doing and they were just buying it and they never had time to ever think about it. So now what the government has done is they've put in the 10-day due diligence period. So what you do want to do is you do want to lock it up, and then in that 10-day due diligence period, we have a lawyer who specializes in pre-construction, and what they're going to do is they're going to go over it and they're going to break everything down for you. And now this is a 40-page document, the agreement of purchase and sale, but there's also another document that's 150 pages. So we don't expect you to look through it, but what the lawyer is gonna do is gonna break everything down for you and just put it in very simple terms so you can understand, like, am I ready to move forward with this? Another thing that's important to know is deposit structures. So Charles touched on it a bit, but your deposit can range anywhere between 5%, and we've seen as high as 25%. Majority of times, it's gonna be 20%. So on signing, you're gonna be putting down either 5,000, 10,000. This is almost always what it is. And within 30 days, you're gonna be bringing that up to 5%. So basically, you have 5% due in 30 days. The next 5%, it could come 90 days, it could be 180 days, it could be a year after that. So now you're at 10%. And then those next 2 deposits of 5% each, sometimes they're coming, like there's a project that's coming out where in 2029, you're gonna be putting down 5%, and in 2028, you're gonna be putting down 5%, that other 10%. So that's why we say it is like a forced savings plan, because you have time to kind of get your ducks in order. You know that you're gonna have to be making these payments, and that's kind of how we like to break down the deposit structure. So deposit structure, due diligence period, and then we want to talk about like our favorite projects. So we have 3 of our favorite projects that we do want to tell you about, but even before we get there, we're going to talk about Park Road really quick. So Park Road, this is a project that's in Yorkville. So in Yorkville, as an investor, this is high-end investing. Now, these are going for around $1,600 a square foot. In Yorkville, that's low because in Yorkville, the average is anywhere between $2,000 a square foot to $2,200 a square foot. There's a project that's coming that's $4,000 a square foot. We don't recommend that one at all, but that's what's coming. So what we talked about, remember what we talked about before. In major cities, your price per square foot is looking anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a square foot. So Yorkville is definitely up there, but let's talk about LSQ.
So LSQ, it's a master plan community, 7 buildings. It's just at VP and Shepherd, so right across the bridge from Fairview Mall. We talked about master plan communities. Why do we love those specifically? Is because the builder will release building 1 and they have a price for it. We'll throw out a number, 1,000 a square foot. The demand is high, sells out in 5 to 10, 15 days. For building 2, they're gonna typically increase the price. By the time you get to building 7, if you bought in phase 1, there is like literally a 99% chance that you make great money. That's why we love LSQ. So building 1, it's sold in the spring, and now they're actually releasing building 2 mid to end of October. And it's what we love about LSQ. It's about 1,200 square feet. It's $1,200 per square feet. But again, he was talking about 1,600 to 2,000. So here's the structure. And again, we talk about deposit structure. And many times we have clients come to us and say, hey, Saf, hey, Blanca, I have X amount now. I have X amount that I'm able to save every month. So we talk to them also. It's not just the importance of the project, of what they can feasibly do as a deposit and what they can potentially close on. So right here, we talked about it. Some projects are 5 to 10. This one specifically, these are actual numbers. You have to pay $10,000 upon signing, and the balance of the 5% within 30 days, 2.5% in 90 days, and another 2.5% in 365. So in the first year, you're paying 10%, and then in 2028, when they close, you're paying the extra 10%.
Okay, so M6. So this is right around square one. So again, this is a master planned community. So the infrastructure, we talked about kind of building out the infrastructure, but for M6, because the square one is already there, all the infrastructure is already there. So there's already been M1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 6th building. So there's 2 more buildings that are going to be coming, M7 and M8. But this is another project. And again, one of the biggest things about this one is it's a lower price. So starting in the high 300s, and then your average price per square foot, you're looking at around $1,050 a square foot. So that's something that's like really, really nice about it. Another, if you want to think about other like master planned communities, like Vaughan Metropolitan City Center, that's another master planned community. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a lot going up there. Before it was just open. There was a lot of suburbs there, but the majority of people moving forward are going to be living in condos, because it's just that's how we're moving. When there was less people, there was more space, more houses, bigger spaces. But now what we're looking at is there's a lot more condos coming. You can build condos a lot faster, and even from Bloor down to the water, you're only allowed to build multifamily residential. You're not allowed to build any single family homes there at all, just because we don't have enough space and we're trying to build the city up. So Pickering City Center, this is one of our favorites. We just went to the pre-launch party for it, and they have 10 buildings that are going to be coming. So again, the infrastructure is already there. So the Pickering Town Center, so it was called Town Center before. They're changing it to City Center now because Pickering is no longer going to be a town. It's going to become a city. When you look at Pickering, 2% of condos in the GTA are in Pickering. So there's a lot of room for growth there, and they're going to be bringing 10 buildings. Again, A lot of the infrastructure is already there, but this is going to be, so building number 1 is already sold out, and building number 2 is going to be launching tomorrow. This one's very similar to the last one, 10,000 on signing, and then you got to come to 5% in 30 days. But you're looking, there's a lot is not going to be due until the end. So this one has a good deposit structure, and every single project that you look at is always going to have a different deposit structure. So it always depends on what's the type of person that you are. How does your money look now? How is it going to look in the future? And those are things that you're going to be looking at when you decide which project is going to be the best for you. So that's really kind of what we want to emphasize everything today. Now we want to open it up to questions. There's no wrong questions, no bad questions, but what do you guys want to know a little bit more about?
So do you guys see it a lot where your clients do buy pre-construction and sell it right after, like a flip almost on the pre-construction?
So that's like, yeah, so like flipping the paper or like assigning it. So
is that lucrative, or is that just a silly way to deal with it?
There are times where it's lucrative, but again, like we always say, like, think about the future. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you could make a quick 50, 100, sometimes 30. Yeah. There's an amount to it. But now imagine if you held it for 5 to 10 years. We always promote long-term investing. Mm-hmm. That's why, like, whenever someone comes with us, if their initial intention is to assign, we just say, hey, have you done it before? We always recommend 5 to 10 years. Why? Because we have stories of, we all have personal stories of, oh, I should have just held for another 3 to 5 years, right? My first pre-construction I bought in 2008, I sold it 2 years after closing. Had I held it for another 2 years, I would have made literally like 200,000 for extra 2 years, but I didn't have the patience. So I learned the hard way. So I try to promote learning the easy way.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely don't recommend it, but it's something that people do, and it's something that people were doing a lot. But now, like Charles was talking about, there's a lot of people who they were buying five different units, and they weren't able to close on them. Another thing that's really important to know is when we talk about condos, 50% of new builds are owned by investors. So a lot of times it's not end users. A lot of times it is investors, but everybody always needs a place to live, and it comes from investors.
So the allocation, because I think you mentioned something about allocation, like from the builder. So once the builder allocate for you guys like a unit, do you guys add your own interest to it or profit to it? Like, say, if they allocate it for you for, like, an example, 10,000, do you now sell it for 12,000?
No.
Only for 20. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I'm just kidding. No, allocations, the builder pays us directly. We are not in the business. I don't know if other agents do it, but we're not in the business of, that's a bad business. And whatever the value we get, our job is to only bring it to our clients at whatever the price we got it for.
Our goal is always to get our clients the best price that we can get them.
We have never done it, nor will we ever do it in terms of increasing that. If I were to do that, we would just buy it for ourselves.
Could you just re-clarify the difference between the right to lease and the right to assign?
So the right to lease is, again, during the occupancy period of when you get the keys and when it's registered. It's typically sometimes between 6 to 8 months of you paying an occupancy fee. You're allowed to lease it, so rent it out to somebody and cover some of your costs. The right to assign is different. It is typically before the occupancy period of, let's say you bought a condo in 2019, it's now 2022, the builder tells you we're expecting to close in 2023, 2024. You literally just take your contract, take it to market, and find a buyer to buy your contract in an ideal situation of with profit. So now you're not leasing it, you're not renting it out. So you'd be renting it out. Here you're just selling the whole contract. You're selling your product to somebody else.
So you would need to have both clauses in there, or if you have the right to assign, can you do a right to lease as well? So you have to have both of them.
They're independent clauses, but we always make sure that both of them are ideally in every contract that we sign with the builder.
I think let's talk a lot about like condos, like focus more on condos. And so mentioned the due diligence period of like 10 days, which the government introduced. So is that only valid for condos?
Yeah, so that's only for condos. So if you're looking at freehold, which is like a detached house, semi-detached, a townhouse, anything that's freehold, the 10-day due diligence doesn't go with it because there's so many more condos. Like if you look at a condo building, you can maybe fit 4 houses there, but there's 800 units in the building. So there's so many more. But when it comes to like a freehold, there's way less product.
The other question is about the HST. Also, is that applying only for the 24,000, only for like condos or like any purchase?
Yeah, so the 24,000 is going to be on any purchase, whether you're an investor, whether you're an end user. If you are an end user, you're just going to get that rebated like right away, right on closing. But if you're an investor, you need to rent it out. You need to rent it out and you need to show the government that you're renting it out. And then within 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to get that money rebated to you.
Yeah, I think like what I was asking is about, is it more about condos or it works also for the house?
Both, yeah. It works for both, yeah.
Anything pre-construction, yeah.
HST is for any pre-construction.
The rental period on that, does it have to be a long-term or like do you do like a mid-term rental on that?
Yeah.
So it actually depends on the builder. So typically they prefer the 1-year leases, and we'll know upfront, like you can't sign a 30-day lease. Sometimes it'll be, like every builder is different, but they'll tell you, like I'd say on average it's minimum, like absolute minimum is 6 months, but like 90% of projects they'll say you need to have a 1-year lease.
For the rebate though, it
yeah.
needs to be a year. For the
Exactly.
rebate, yeah. Any other questions? There's no wrong questions.
Could it be a 3-month lease, but then they go month to month?
No, it needs to be a 1-year lease because the government needs, like the goal is that we're creating more houses for people to live in. Like the vacancy tax is because they want every house someone to live in it because there's not enough homes. So the reason you're gonna get that rebate, like if you only do 3 months or you don't rent it out, you're not gonna get the money back. So it's kind of, it forces you to either live there or rent it out. It forces somebody to be there.
Is there any support that you render for a client that is not able to close on the closing date and they cannot reassign, other than them losing their money that they already put through? Is there anything that you render to support that client?
It happens. It's very unfortunate if you can't assign, if you can't close your, there are ways, and it is tough, of course. So typically when you get a mortgage, there's a 6+% interest on it. You're gonna have to get a private mortgage potentially. And if not, in absolute worst case scenario, it's like you buy a resale, you buy it 3 months ago, and on closing you're like, we can't close. Similar situation, you are gonna lose your deposit. In an absolute worst case scenario.
But the other thing is, you're most likely gonna be able to assign it, but you might not get the amount of money that you're looking for it. If you really have to let it go, and let's say you didn't go with the project that we said, and you can't sell it, and there's so many other people who can't sell it as well, like demand is really high, then you might have to drop your price a lot more than everybody else to be able to sell it, and then you're gonna be taking a hit there as well.
So is there any situation whereby an individual is selling less than the cost price?
Absolutely, yeah. It would just be called like a distress sale. They can't assign, or the builder doesn't allow assignment, and now they have to find a way to get rid of it or lose their deposit.
But
it's very rare, but it does
it's
happen.
very
Absolutely.
rare. Majority of the time, this is not happening, but it does happen.
Yeah, it's like a similar situation where someone bought, at the peak, 2022 January, we saw it in the market. People bought for properties that should be worth 1.2, went up to 1.5. They bought it at 1.5. Now it's only worth 1.2. So they're gonna lose some money there. So of course, as with everything, there are risks. That's why we always promote. We get, 70, 80, 90 projects. We don't really talk or get excited about those. we on average just get excited about 6 to 8, maybe 10 at most projects. And we make sure that everybody, because we know everything about the projects going in, we want to make sure that you know everything about the project going in as well. And that's why, again, like buying first phase is really important, because if there's 5 buildings and there's 500 units each, that's 2,500 units. So if you buy in the first 500, there's a very low chance of you losing money compared to by the time they sold the 5th building, those units are like 100, 200K more than what you bought it for. So that's why it's really important. If you're buying, sometimes you'll see projects that are just 5% down. You'll see that a lot. Oh, 5% down, up to move in. That's because that's the last unit, the last 50 units available. The price is already up 150K. You're excited because it's only 5%. But now, when you close, you're already potentially negative.
I have a question. You say you can lease out in the occupancy time, right? If you choose not to occupy the building yourself. But have you seen a case where your tenants don't want to come out? Or you can't get them out in time for you to take possession of the property?
So whenever you lease a property, like we have to follow the tenant RTA. So you have to give them 90 days notice. You have to make sure you have to give them 1 month rent, and you're gonna have to move in immediate family. And yeah, absolutely. Similar with anything, there's always situations where
So you're
it
saying
arises.
you rented it out on occupancy to somebody for a year,
Yeah, you want basically you want somebody to carry that cost for you.
and then once the building's ready, then you're going to be moving in.
Yeah, because that's the game, right? You give them a year or 8 months, whatever, and then they cover your occupancy costs, because that'll be like $4 grand a month, right? Basically what you're saying, right? So let's say 412 is 48, so you try to save that 48 from coming out of your pocket. By putting a tenant in there, maybe at $3 grand, 3.2, depends on the market. But what if that tenant decide that they're gonna, they don't want to come out?
So the only time, whenever you rent it out, it's across the board. It's across the board. It's Ontario regulation. The only time, especially if you want them to leave, you're gonna have to move in, or your immediate family is gonna have to move in. So that doesn't change.
Yeah.
And similar, like if anybody, like you could sign a lease agreement. If they don't want to leave,
And yeah, it doesn't matter if it's pre-construction, if it's resale. The rules are always going to be
Yeah,
the
it's the
same
same
once you
rules.
put that 1 year lease. But the majority of people who want to live there, they would want to move in. Usually they're going to be wanting to move in on occupancy because it's brand new. So usually they want to live there. But if not, yeah, they could be renting it out for that year. But then it becomes the same as every other place. If you do want to move in, you have to do that paperwork. You have to give that 90 days notice, and it needs to be immediate family.
And you said that the builder would have to give you the green light on that. But you already negotiate that in
the right to lease, yeah. But to your point is, imagine now you bought a freehold, already built home. The day you move in, you have to start paying your mortgage, maintenance fee, property tax, utility bills. And that's what the occupancy fee already covers. So if you budgeted, it's typically if you budgeted, for whatever the amount, the occupancy fee on average is less than what all those fees would cost. So if you're gonna move in anyways, you should probably
Yeah.
just move in during occupancy.
It'll be
That's
cheaper.
listed out in the contract that you signed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they know the cost beforehand?
Yes, they will. There is a portion that you should know, but obviously it's based on interest rates. So it's based on market interest rate. So
It's not a fixed cost.
it's not a fixed cost.
Because
No,
there's an
no.
interest that you have to pay towards the
The
builder.
builder, yeah.
So you pay interest towards the builder. You have to pay that maintenance fee, and then you have to pay the property taxes. And those are all combined into that occupancy fee.
Which is not set until close to occupancy.
Correct, yeah. So in situations like this, obviously in the past it was, on average, you'll know what it was, sometimes 2,500. But of course now, instead of it being a 2% interest rate, 2.5, it's at 6.5%, and inflation increased the cost of everything. The occupancy fees, comparatively to the past, are higher right now, for sure.
I have one more question.
Sure.
In inspection, is that something that you, the person buying the property from the builder, you will have to set up your own inspection of the?
Before you get the keys?
Because you're gonna have warranty on the building. 'Cause
Yes.
it's brand new
Yeah, of
building,
course.
right? But I'm saying is the inspection done by the builder, or you have to conduct your?
So it's called a PDI. So before you get the keys for occupancy, you go through the builder with it's not gonna be a sales rep, it'll be like a customer service representative, and typically like someone who's done the project, like an actual construction worker, plus you go through any deformities, anything you don't like, any abnormalities over the project, and you tell them before you get the keys for occupancy. They'll still make you go into occupancy, but there is a day one check, a 30-day check, and a year check, and all of that is typically covered within the Terion warranty. Yeah, so again, of course, if it's like a minor issue that you have, they may or may not fix it, but like any actual issue will be corrected. That includes like paint, make sure everything is leveled, whatever it may be.
You said you do have your lawyer that go through the documentation before signing. Say, does this lawyer, the cost of this lawyer, who is paying for it, is that you or the client?
No, that's something that our team covers. It's our in-house lawyer, and we will cover that fee.
So what if your client don't want your lawyer, they will
You
need
can
their
use
own lawyer?
you can use any lawyer. Yeah.
Okay, my other question is that in terms of commission, do you guys charge the client a commission or?
No, so the
who
builder,
pay for your service?
the builder pays the commission to the real estate brokerages.
And similar like resale, the seller pays for our commission. The buyer never pays.
So I think what you guys promoting here is investing in real estate. So let's say as an individual who wants to put money in multiple, like, because I guess I have new project coming up, something like that. What are the things beside this basic when it comes to tax, like and all of those things you know government related to be aware of before buying those stuff or putting money into those stuff?
So you said, what do you need to be aware of?
Yeah, like when it comes to like, there's always some tax involved somewhere, or like things like that to be aware of. For example, like today, let's say I bought three of these pre-construction, for example, and so at some point, but I'm not gonna live in all three. So, what is the play in there? Is there any other taxing involved in those like revenue that, for example, those renting are generating? What are those things to be aware of, basically, in those sense?
I think something that's important that we didn't touch on too much is the fees that you're going to have to pay on closing. So you're going to have to pay that land transfer tax, and that's anything that you're buying in Toronto, you're always going to have to pay that. The HST, which you talked about, the lawyer, that's something that we would cover.
The development charges.
Development charges, that's what he was talking about, having capped development charges. So like he said, there's times where some people, they're not well informed, or someone just sells them a project, and when closing time comes, they get a bill and it has an extra $60,000 of development charges. So this is something that you want to know before. So you get it capped, and you're going to know it's going to be somewhere between 10 to 15,000. That's usually what we're seeing.
So besides those like closing costs and all of those things, let's say you're renting those three units and you're not living in any of them. The income, let's say you choose to sell some at some point or one at that point. I'm just curious about, because I know I have read things about like government involvement and pay all that taxes. So I'm just trying to see if you guys can brush a little bit on
Oh, the
like
CRA?
capital,
The
yeah,
CRA
capital
will always
gains.
come for you,
Yeah.
man. It's the nature of the business. We're not tax professionals, so it's a really hard question to answer. But I would suggest you keep it for at least 12 months. But keep in mind that with any real estate, if you're an investor and you're looking to flip multiple properties, eventually the CRA, they know everything about you, and they're gonna eventually find out that you're, you're real estate, not an investor anymore. You're becoming a real estate flipper, and that does open up a lot more, obviously, tax liability for you. 50% of your capital gains.
50% of the gains. Like say you make $200,000 on it, 100,000 of it you'd have to be paying 50% on that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
any capital
yeah.
gains.
But what we would highly suggest is just have a really good like tax professional. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, because then you become, yeah, anyways. So it's a deep discussion, but have a good, same thing, have a good lawyer, have a good tax accountant. It'll change your life.
Any more questions?
One more. Is the deposit structures, are they negotiable in any way?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I've never, the only time the deposit structure is it's not really negotiable, but there might be promotions for deposit structures. Again, it's at the tail end of a project. Yeah, it's like, so what happens is the builder, let's say there's 415 units in one building. The builder says, okay, we want to have demand, so they'll have a great price, bring the buyers in, but they'll keep like 10 to 15, 20% of the units so that they could sell in 2027 instead of the 2028,
Yeah.
2029. And those times, they already have everything in order. This is just bonus money for them. So sometimes they'll have promos.
Yeah,
But
even the way that things are right now, because consumer confidence is low, a lot of this deposit structures, a lot of incentives are a lot more in favor of the buyer than you're gonna find in different times. So they are gonna hold some units, and then if times change, they're gonna change that deposit structure and they're gonna change the incentives.
But it's kind of structured like this to kind of bring people in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, again, like the market for across the board is a little soft. So that's why we have these, the 2.5%. Typically in the past, it was always 5% within 30 days, 5% here, 5% here, and then the 5% on closing. But now we have it structured, some projects a lot easier to get into it.
So you say it's now negotiable, but what happening, for example, on the fifth payment, we miss it? Like, let's say it didn't go through, or there was $2 missing, whatever.
Is there a grace
Banking
period?
fee or whatever is going to be.
Yeah,
expected and the
So we had a client, she called me yesterday. She forgot that, it happens, right? 3 years from now, you're just having a great time and you forget that the payment was due that specific date. There is a small grace period. The lawyer calls you, the builder calls you, say, hey, what's going on here? Can you let us know, like, what happened here? Can you get us the money? And now, instead of it being a regular check, because they were trying to deposit, it is going to be a draft check, and a draft check is cash value. You need to have that money to the lawyers. They'll give you some time, like 7 to 10 days, but it needs to be there. Otherwise, like, as with anything, you're not following through with your contract, your part of the contract, you're going to be in default.
Sorry, next question. Yeah, in terms of the materials that needed to be used, does the buyer have the right to choose materials like the window, like the flooring?
Not so much the window, but yeah, flooring. You'll be able to choose kind of what you want. There's a basic one, so normally when you're buying the basic package, and then if you want upgrades, whether you want maybe your countertop, flooring, different things. If you want upgrades, you're allowed to add more onto there as well, but it is going to come at a cost.
Oh, maybe the last question for now. Go ahead.
You guys mentioned that you have an X amount of units ahead of time before launch date. Is that something, I don't know if you guys touched on it, but would I be able to choose my plan before it launches so I know this is the unit I'm getting because of the platinum agent status that you would have through Royal? Or is it still something that you guys would stand in line for me on the day of launch and then go and select my unit and have my IDs and my check deposited for me? How does that work?
Yeah.
So yeah, we have the allocations, but not many. Sometimes some builders, we still have to go stand in line, wake up 6 in the morning, be the first one as soon as doors open. We had 2 clients we helped last month, and yeah, we had to stand in line for 3 hours, but we got them both the units that they wanted, and it's just part of the game. And it's one thing we pride ourselves on is like speed and urgency. I heard from the builder that they were launching at 9:30. I was not ready to go, but I got ready, got in my car, hopped into Pickering, and again, we got them the unit they want. So we know in advance typically. Sometimes it's the night before, sometimes it's the day of. But that's why we're always prepared as platinum agents to get in our car and go do what's needed to make sure that we get that unit.
Any more questions?
So out of all the plans you guys mentioned, all the new projects that are coming out, which one's the best one that you all recommend for a new buyer?
Yeah, I think it really depends. It really depends on who you are. Pickering City Center is a really, really good project. The thing about Pickering City Center is that the building number 2 is launching tomorrow, Friday. So if it's something that you're interested in, you need to move fast. We are gonna be here after. You can come talk to us. There's still more wine. Like, you don't have to go home right away. If you wanna find out more, like, we're gonna be out there. We'll be able to talk to you guys. But yeah, I think we're gonna cap it there. But we really, really, really do appreciate everybody coming out. Well, appreciate it. We're not fully done. So before we do finish, we have a survey that we always want to go through. We want to find out kind of what your thoughts are, because every single event that we do, we want to do it better. So the first question is, how would you rate the event overall? And yeah, we're big boys. We can take it. If you think it was a 1, give us a 1, but we think it was a 5. The next one is, did you feel like this topic was valuable? And then what other topics would you like us to cover in the future? So many times in we've heard that people want to find out more about pre-construction. That's definitely why we're doing this event. So if there's anything else that you want to find out about, let us know so we can bring it out. And then, are you interested in finding out more about pre-construction? So if this is something that you're interested in, circle yes. And would you be looking as an investor, as an end user? And then some people after this presentation, they're gonna like pre-construction, and some people are gonna be like, you know what, we don't like pre-construction. There's many different types of ways to invest in real estate and get into real estate, but would you like a real estate action plan? And what a real estate action plan is, that's where somebody from our team is gonna sit down with you. We're gonna talk about kind of your short-term goals, your long-term goals, what you're trying to accomplish in real estate. And if it's a match, we'll be able to move forward, but it might not be a match, and we're not always able to help everybody, but it is. If it is, then we'll move on to the next steps. And then, when is the best time to contact you? We don't want to reach out to you when you're busy, so let us know when's the best time to contact you. And yeah, take the books, keep them, give them to somebody. And another thing that we have for you guys, we really do value you, so everybody's gonna get to take home a bottle of wine. You can grab that. you can grab that on the way out. Highly recommend the pomegranate Merlot. It's a little bit sweet, but yeah, we appreciate all you guys coming out. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Looking forward to talking to you. And if you want more wine, if you want to find out more, we'll be out there ready to talk to you guys. So we just finished the event, how to invest passively in real estate. We were talking about pre-construction. We had a great turnout. So many people were learning.
Yeah, and it's our 3rd event?
It's our 4th event.
It's our 4th event. So we've been super consistent. Our goal is always to educate people on how to invest in real estate. And sometimes it's different topics. This one was super high in demand, how to invest in pre-construction. And I'm glad with the turnout and how things went.
Yes, and we always have a theme. This theme was from Warren Buffett. When people are greedy, be fearful. And when people are fearful, be greedy. So it's all about education. Consumer confidence is down right now. So we want to educate so you can make the best decision. And hey, our next event is coming up. Our next event is coming up soon. How to use your home as an ATM.
And Warren Buffett also said, buy when there's blood in the streets.